that interesting to me. I was about to go to sleep and this just woke me up. I don't know this guy. It's funny. His face looks slightly familiar.
Oh, black people do not like him.
That's probably why I haven't seen this guy. What's so sad about Thomas Sowell?
Ooh, I need to see that one later.
I can't remember. It was and then it's the other one.
Remember, they overwhelm your emotions to stop you from using your sense and your knowledge and your wisdom.
And then we're talking about the planets being aligned and the energies and stuff. That could be related.
Yes, bro. All these things. Say, bro. Like, I mean, I know these are murders. These are people dying. All over the place. But we're dealing with people who don't care. Like yes, they will make sure people die in order to get to their goal. Like they as long as we stay distracted, our minds are somewhere other than our families and building ourselves and getting our farms together, storing and stocking up, and as long as we're not doing stuff like that will defeat all of their efforts to sacrifice us. Like that's what I'm saying. Like that's really what we need to remind ourselves of, is that there's things that's going on big. Like there's somebody that right now that's probably gonna be starving. Or not gonna be able to eat in a couple of months. Shoot, when the winter comes, what's gonna happen? You preparing?
This one might be like porn too, so let me stop. I think I'm gonna go to what I wanted to go to anyways. Is the
ignore that part.
The video of the spy. The
I sent you a couple of videos that were really, really short on Messenger. So you might want to preview them one way or another. I just found them like almost comedy one way or another.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up Facebook. Before I do that, I'm going to play some of this because this is what I wanted to get into, and we started a bit last week into this video, but it was late and I was tired, and I wanted to give this justice.
Have you guys heard of Thomas Sowell? I think his name is.
No.
The guy that everyone is upset now because he's a black man that talks about the history of slavery, but not in the way it's currently seen.
Is he a politician?
No, I think he's just a researcher.
Does he work for like PragerU or something?
I don't know. I've just seen some. I've watched not just the original video, but reaction videos of other people.
It doesn't seem like I don't.
Welcome to I Digress.
It got more intricate about how the white people never actually invade and take slaves. About how all they did was just pull boats up to the coast and go, hey, load them up. Except for the Portuguese. The Portuguese were some slave-raiding motherfuckers. But they mostly were teamed up with the Arabs and the Africans, or the Arabs that were coming down and doing slave raiding. Not really the intercontinental
slaves and transport them on.
So this is the video. I guess this is the one that she was playing. Why did they play? This is Alex Haley, right? Let me see.
By Alex Haley about him over an area larger.
Yeah, there's a comment about him in there because I'm gonna play. That's where people start getting mad. Is right there.
Okay, I'm gonna play his video because the other chick was.
In all of Europe, the total number of slaves exported from East Africa during the 19th century has been estimated to be at least 2 million. The form in which the story of slavery has reached most people today has been along the lines of the best-selling book and widely watched television miniseries Roots by Alex Haley. Challenged on the historical accuracy of Roots, Haley said, "I tried to give my people a myth to live by. This instrumental use of history, or purported history, is open to the same objections as other instrumental myth-making."
Well, look, that pisses me off that Alex Haley is like, I wanted to give my people a myth to live by. What the fuck? We need a myth to live by? We don't need no fucking myth.
You do
Tell the
not
fucking
know
story.
how many times trying to be, look, man, you know how I argue. You know how I argue with people. But, man, that Alex Haley thing hit me when I was about 25. I was trying to argue with someone, and they pulled that shit out, and I'm like, what the fuck?
It's a made-up story, and it came out.
I was a Roots guy. I loved it. I love the
It's
book.
entertaining. It's great.
Well, see, I read the book. I didn't see the movie. I read the book. I thought it was well-researched because there was so much about it that was real, about the culture, about this and that and the other. And then 10, 15 years later, all the things that I'm like, yeah, about are like, well, I was just trying to create a narrative that took everybody along. And I'm like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah, straight up.
My head. And I'm a white boy. Oh my God. How many people of color, black people, are like, this is my dogma. Kunta Kinte, yeah.
And it's a lot of people still on that shit. And that's what sucks about that. Like we was talking about the New York Times and how they quietly say when they fucked up. And like I think a lot of people still think of Roots as a real thing, like something that actually happened, like it's history and shit. I hope everybody that's watching this show knows that it's not. It was all just a show. It was, it was not a real thing that happened. They had historical accuracy in it as far as these type of things could have happened. You know what I mean? Similar scenarios definitely could have happened.
Damn good show.
Yes.
The movie, the book was. Everyone should still read the book, knowing that. It is a great piece of storytelling. The first movie was. The second movie, yeah, it was okay. I enjoyed watching it. But, yeah, it's not dogma. It's not real.
Yeah. Let me play some more of it.
It's as real as Django.
Yeah, and Django is great. I love fucking Django.
Love it.
Despite the impression created by Roots, during the era of the massive slave trade from West Africa, a white man was more likely to catch malaria in Africa than to catch slaves himself. The average life expectancy of a white man in the interior of sub-Saharan Africa at that time was less than 1 year. By and large, men from Europe or the Western Hemisphere came to the coasts of Africa, bought their slaves, and left as soon as possible. Even so, the death rates among the white crews of the ships carrying slaves to the Western Hemisphere were as high as the death rates among the slaves themselves. It was only much later, after quinine and other medical measures enabled Europeans to survive where there were tropical diseases, was it possible for them to invade Africa in force and establish empires there.
That was partially true, but that was a little mincing of truth right there. I heard that.
But by then, the Atlantic slave trade had already been ended. During the era of that trade, Africa was largely ruled by Africans, who established the conditions under which slave sales took place. The crew of a slave ship was in no position to defy African rulers and their armies by going out across the land and capturing people willy-nilly. The stronger African peoples captured and enslaved the weaker peoples. The same pattern found over the centuries in Europe, Asia, the Western Hemisphere, and Polynesia. In Nyasaland, the Ngoni and Yao swaggered over and terrorized other tribes. In Uganda, the Baganda made life miserable for their neighbors.
It's like the guy's not pissing me off at all. He's just freaking saying stuff. Like it doesn't really it's not. And I get what he's trying to say, or but people are making these connections from what he's saying, but he's not really saying that. And it's, I mean, I get he's getting paid probably. I bet you this dude made a whole bunch of money doing this.
And the Nyoro and Hima of Anko enslaved Toro women and children. The Tutsi dominated the Hutu in Rwanda. The Maasai lorded it over the Kikuyu and Kamba, and the latter, in turn, held the Indorobo in a kind of serfdom. It was precisely the fact that Europeans, except for the Portuguese, seldom participated in the raids that captured and enslaved Africans that enabled most people in Europe and the Americas to remain oblivious to the traumatic experience that this was, with some Africans committing suicide to avoid capture and wives being whipped as they tried to cling to their husbands or children.
See, he's so like, it's the little details. And a lot of the stuff he's saying is actually true, but it's like, so what? And it beside the point. And it's like you getting lost in his details and getting emotional is stupid.
Children. Historian David Breon Davis pointed out that Europeans had little contact with the actual process of enslavement, and that as late as 1721, the Royal African Company asked its agents to investigate the modes of enslavement in the interior. Europeans typically saw only the end results, enslaved people being offered for sale on the coast.
So, okay, so, I mean, that still doesn't matter. Like, it's like the point is like trying to justify, trying to say, he keeps on saying Europeans and Portuguese, like, okay, well, these people were innocent in this situation. It's like the way this is where your brain makes the connection, because he's not really saying that. But at the same time, it's like, whatever, bro. Like, okay, he just said, all they know is that they just got to buy these slaves. Okay, well, they didn't have to buy the damn slaves. Get the fuck.
Like I said, all they know is, okay, you don't have to buy that John Deere. All they're doing is pulling up to the coast buying farming equipment. They don't realize what it took to make, procure, or do any of that. They don't realize the fucked up shit going on behind the scenes.
No. They know that's a human being. You can't. Okay. A human and a tractor are two different things.
People eat sausage. People eat foie gras. I don't know what that is. Is not foie gras one of the most disgusting and horrific substances that can be consumed and should be made illegal?
But that's still beside the point, because that's like saying, okay, in Saudi Arabia they stone women in the street.
Okay, but are you measuring your argument from us today in 2020?
I'm not. I'm saying, looking those people. Look, okay, I get it on the economic side. You're looking at it economically.
No, I'm not.
You just want to make money.
Anything about it.
But
I'm just saying, people think you can't.
You can't say that people didn't feel like owning somebody forever and their kids and shit wasn't right. It was people at this time who didn't fuck with that shit.
There were abolitionists all over at this time.
So yeah,
like there are today, despite the fact that there's real slavery still going on in the world.
So the mind frame of today is definitely different, the way people look at things. But were they aware that these people were going to be like their property and they're humans? Yes, they were very, very much aware of that, and they were able to put that to the side for economic reasons. And then you have all this science that came out to try to justify this, so that because they felt guilty about it from jump.
Religion, not science.
Well, they mixed it all up together, but
scientists never agreed, and that's why scientists kept getting excommunicated.
Well, at some point, science was saying
the ones that feared excommunication would go, yeah, what they say.
Well, at some point, science was saying these people were not human, so it's totally justified. So from the beginning,
scientists who were controlled by religion were saying that. Which
Well,
is one of the reasons why we have a separation between science and religion today. That is one of the main schisms that happened to create the juxtaposed.
Well, it was popular and accepted and considered to be the, the experts or whatever, the people that know, what I'm saying? Not everybody was educated, especially that's another thing that the people don't understand about the differences in times. Less and less people were even able to read. So, but they go by what the people say. The people say, bro, they're not human. It's cool. All right, well, shit, I'm going to go buy me a slave. Hey, they're kids and shit. They're not human.
Okay, so, then how come people still wear their pants down below their ass, even though everybody knows it's willing to trade your butthole for a fucking pack of cigarettes?
Yeah, well, that's that slave culture that has infected the popular culture. That's fucking terrible. But this guy is saying...
Here's where you go back to the Jewish guys that told people how to dress and act on MTV, which created more of the popular culture today than actually mimicked it.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother story, though. Let me hear some more of this guy, because he's not making me mad at all. Like, I don't feel like it makes me, and he's just saying random, like, a lot of the stuff he's saying, you can't...
It's controversial statements that do not agree with the common narrative that everyone wants to hear right now.
Well, I don't think that
it's part of the truth.
Well, that's what I was, a lot of the stuff he's saying you can't really dispute is true, but it's beside the point. It's totally beside the point, and it's just him
beside the point?
Because he's just giving random ass details. That's all. I mean, like, okay, that's true, but whatever. So,
because you don't agree with a detail or two, or it's just random details.
I didn't say I didn't disagree with his details. I'm saying
no, you're dismissing it though.
No, well, it's
you're not disagreeing, but you're dismissing it.
I'm saying it's not accumulating into anything. It's just sensational.
It may not necessarily accumulate, but it's counter information. It's part of a whole.
Yeah.
It contradicts a common narrative. See, you see beyond the common narrative, as do several people, but you understand how this contradicts what people are saying, what certain organizations and people up there protesting are saying. And that's why I'm saying this ticks people off.
Well, the media is full of shit, and then history is his story. And if people want to understand what happened, they have to go and look for themselves, really, and dig through and read between the lines, because that's just it. And so, and then the popular narrative is...
The danger of reading between the lines is creating your own narrative.
Well, you have to. You have to, because the narrative is not true.
How does your narrative agree with the consensus of the world?
Either create your own narrative or allow somebody to create one for you.
I mean, there's no other choice.
Just like a certain guy was able to create a narrative where it was okay to shoot some kids.
And I get your argument on that. I really do. But there's no other way other than to create a narrative for yourself to understand the world. There's no other way. But you want to have your narrative be all encompassing and based on truth and facts. That and then if that's the case, then we'll have a cumulative narrative, because we'll see things in reality and we'll see the truth and the facts of things. Then we're going to mostly agree.
But as long as it's true for you, it doesn't matter if it's true for everybody else. Like that's
well, then they're not on the side of truth, because if we're both on the side of truth, then we're gonna be on the same side.
There was a show the other day that your title was "We're gonna look at what people say and break it down." There's a reason I did not participate in that show or show up that day.
Well, I was talking about etymology.
Well, yeah, but the problem is, there is a tendency to use simple statements comments, things like that, to change what people are saying,
I think we
and then attack them for what you said they said, rather than try to understand their narrative.
well, that's not what we was talking about though. I get your
Yeah.
point, but that's not what we was talking
I
about.
know that I was afraid that's where it was going to go, and I did not. I probably should have come, but I felt like I didn't want to be a part of it if that's what it was going to be.
Nah, that's not what we was on at all. But
My
I
bad.
get your point there, and I hadn't even thought of that side of it. But we were talking about like how you use words like "bless you" or whatever, and we was talking about where
The
these words
origin.
came from. Yeah, and the etymology of them, and
But
and
you
and
could have
and
said origin of words and stuff like that.
some I suck sometimes, bro. Like
Not
and
that
those
you're
titles.
going to break down what people say.
And those little subs that I write, I do those at the spur of the moment to because different uh where I broadcast to, it shows up differently for y'all. So that's the reason why I have to do a sub. That one pops up as the title sometimes. I really should spend a little bit more time with that, but I spend the time
Listen,
on the title.
Yeah, because I ain't gonna lie. I
I'm a
think that
writer
that's
in
it's
etymology. Go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say I think it's very important that we do stuff like that, or at least people start to recognize the whole idea of the words that we're using, because the fact that we're using English and it's spelling. What are we? What kind of spells are we with the words that we're using? Because we're we've started using connotative linguistics instead of the denotative.
And
How
that, and
does
that,
it
Uh,
how does it look when you put it in English to okay, whoever your major viewers are, India, whatever, use English into Indian and then translate it back into English using, and you'll see what they're seeing.
well, India, they speak English in India because they were British colony.
Not all of them.
Well, the neighbor Aboriginal languages, it's like I care
Oh,
about them, but the world doesn't care about
okay,
them.
and everyone in America speaks English. I got you.
So, but earlier you said we don't. They're trying to change what people say, and I that is totally what I'm trying to do, and
They put
that's
irregardless in the dictionary. Irregardless is now actually a word.
yeah
I've given up on the English language.
we talked about that. I could just vomit that word. It makes me want to vomit. So, but earlier you said changing what people say, and that's a good uh actually you brought
assessment.
up whatever, I can't even say the word now, but we don't need to be using those words, and the words that we do use, we need to know what they really mean. And
Well,
if
and if you're using them, know what why you're like, don't just use them because that's what how everybody else uses it. Use it based on your true knowledge of and understanding of that word, because you could actually be hindering yourself or others, because those words, you can
and,
be creating a spell
and everybody
against.
knows it's a sword, right? They say your tongue is like a sword or some shit they say, and you can cut somebody down and really hurt their feelings if you want to with just their words. Way more effective than actually punching them. You know what I'm saying? So, but we forget about this, and so, but then the double speak, back to that, the double speak that they teach us to use these words improperly, giving the power away, and you know and then we're, like you say, giving, cursing, literally cursing. Okay, so you got religious people who say, don't, it's bad to curse, and I agree with them. But fuck is not a curse. You know what I'm saying? Um, saying I wish you die or something like that, that's a curse. You know what I'm saying? Go die or something. Go kill yourself. You
Okay,
know?
one,
Yeah, fuck off.
one of the sermons that I actually have written up and is actually a pretty good one is about how taking God's name in vain. It's not about the occasional, God damn it, Jesus Christ, things like that. It's about trying to tell people, well, God says this and God says that. Because you are using God's name to produce and back up your own beliefs.
Yep.
That is using God's name in vain.
Yep.
Not, like I said, not the occasion. The occasional curse is a slip up. If he is truly a benevolent God, kicking your toe, hitting your pinky toe on the damn corner table and going, oh, fuck, mother, goddamn it, Jesus freaking Christ. That's not going to send you to hell. The guy that designed the table to deliberately make people kick their freaking pinky toe on it, that's the dude that's going to go to hell.
I love it. I love it. You led us all the way into that. I ate that all the way up. Good job, Doc. But I agree with your point because my religious side is ignited by this, because they're right and they're wrong. They're just lost in the words. They need to freaking look at it, the right way. You know what I'm saying? And then they'll get it, and then they'll actually not do it. Because I think that these people that don't understand about saying God's name in vain are actually doing that because they're not aware that that's what they're doing. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
And it's really scary when a person really feels like they're doing God's work or whatever, but they're demented, and they're like, Christ said this, or Jesus told me to do this and all of this, and they're demented, and you have to, when you talk about being in hell, you have to be in hell anyways because you're so mentally fucked. If you are in hell.
We got to think about the type of people who don't really pay that much attention to these words. Is people who can easily be manipulated, that will take a narrative that somebody else taught them,
exactly,
without truly studying it for themselves to really teach you from a more of an experience side. It's more so just reiterating or just bringing up things that somebody else told them, some time before, whereas they don't even really have the full understanding. They didn't do the research, like that can
it makes me sad. Like I could cry right now because I love humans, I love religious people, and it makes you into a sheep. Literally, it makes you into this meek.
I love mankind. It's people I've got a fucking problem with.
And I agree with you. And these religions, it make you meek. It make you so you're ripe to be used in any way that the person decides to use you.
Because you are different. Because you are not the same. Right back to the video.
I don't know about that. I'm
people
saying
take advantage of people who are different.
Well, they see them as different, but that's an illusion. You find excuses to exploit people.
Everybody's different. Why do you go to Louisiana and once you've been there for a short time, you realize the mantra is get them before they get you.
Well, you can't specify that to Louisiana.
I'm doing that as a generalization, as someone who has lived there for a reasonable amount of time in 4 different regions of the state.
I would say Louisiana people are definitely different. I'm going to stand on that. But the other part of what you're saying, I can't stand on that part. So
we're no different.
I'm not saying bad people and stuff like that. I'm just saying
But no, the more you study people, the more differences that you find in people really brings you right back around to show you how much alike we are.
Exactly. I 100% agree with you on that because that's what I study. And that's what I find when I study different cultures around the world. I see all the similarities. They just glare at me. And it's like so weird how somebody can grow up on another part of the earth and have the same values that I have. That's mind blowing to me. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
No,
and
that's
there's no
called the
religion.
human experience. The
Yeah,
human experience.
exactly. So that's,
So
I mean, we're more
Ooh,
alike than we are
that's a
different.
show title.
yeah. Let me play some more of this. The guy that's supposed to make me mad, but he's not really making me mad. It's only like 3 minutes left in it. I don't know how much more I'm gonna play of it, but let me play something.
It was much the same story in the Ottoman Empire, where those who bought slaves had no idea what these slaves had been through before. The unique position of the Western world in the history, and especially the destruction of slavery, need not imply that there was unanimity within the West on this institution. In addition to whites who defended the enslavement of Africans on racial grounds, or who opposed general emancipation on social grounds, there were many whites, and even blacks, who defended slavery as a matter of self-interest as slave owners. Although most black owners of slaves in the United States were only nominal owners of members of their own families, there were thousands of other blacks in the antebellum South who were commercial slave owners, just like their white counterparts.
And I'm like, so what? So fucking what?
An estimated 1/3 of the
Because
free
it does
persons of
matter.
color in New Orleans.
What do you say?
It does matter when you start arguing it. When someone goes, "Well, black people never owned slaves."
That's not true.
It's
Yeah, but it
yeah.
doesn't
Well,
matter as far as like
well,
they
we
suck
know
too.
that. Well,
I
no,
don't. I
that's just
don't.
it. We know that. We are enlightened. Unfortunately, we have to talk and confront and deal with people who are not enlightened.
Okay, I get your point on that. So
How
the
many
way the
times have
dominant
But
view.
you?
but but
How
but
many
see,
times
double
have you been told black people
but
never owned slaves?
no, listen. Well, that's true to a certain
A
extent
black person
because,
was the first slave owner in the United States by law.
well,
Me and
but
Pat wouldn't argue with that, but I don't think that
but
I, those people sucked. It's not a
let,
racial thing.
No,
It's a
it
suck
was
thing.
I'm not saying they didn't.
it was never a racial thing, and see, but that's the double
It's
speak.
about
That's one.
debunking a disingenuous argument, though.
Hey, listen, I don't
Because
know.
they're
Can
ignorant
y'all hear
though.
me? Can
Yeah, we
y'all
can
hear
hear you.
me?
Go ahead.
Okay, because that's where the double speaking, the whole etymology thing is. Because first of all, we're talking about political statuses. This has nothing to do with race, ethnicity, or anything. So when you make the statement that white people were, are the slave owners and this, that, and the other, well, that wasn't based on your skin color because white people, the first white people were black or brown, dark, what I'm saying, like melanated people. So I mean, and then when United States came about, that's when people with lighter shades became the white people because they were stealing other people's status or their standing in this land. But and
White people is pretty European, man.
well, you can say European, but there were black Europeans. Like I mean, that's all of those things can be
Swarthy.
Just
swarthy.
worthy.
You I I love that. I love that. Yeah, they were
They were
swarthy.
swarthy.
Exactly. So I mean, or Tony. Like there were different shades. But
Remember all the movies, Tall, Dark, and Handsome, and the all those movies. It was a lot of people who were
but
what do you
no, no,
call it?
no. The one that got me is when I learned about the whole idea about a brunette. Brunette wasn't just about your hair color. Brunette was your complexion, your hair, and all that.
Yeah, in
So
Spanish they have a term like that. It's like moreno or something like that. But it's hair color and it's also
Mulatto.
it, no, that's not it. And
Well,
it
okay.
but it's similar to that, and I'm probably saying it wrong.
So
But
mulatto is a little more of the caramel chocolate variety.
well, yeah, mulatto came out about when they was trying to make up all that,
mixtures. Well,
and all that.
I
That's
don't
not.
that's a
know.
mixture.
I don't
Yeah,
know. She called herself that. I just called her pretty.
well, that's where that came from. But no, this is a term that it encompasses the hair color and the skin tone or whatever. It's like it's all together. Let me read
Well,
this.
I think it was more so the fact that I mean the whole mulatto idea was that you were a mixture of
Yeah, that was.
something.
Yeah, that was the tier thing. We can go into that, but that's real simple. They came out with that shit and like, okay, it's this and this. They had a whole fucking list. Anyways, it was stupid.
Yeah.
Were slave owners, and thousands of these slave owners volunteered to fight for the Confederacy during the Civil War. Black slave owners were even more common in the Caribbean. In short, there were many defenders of slavery in the West, even in the 19th century.
Okay.
And outside the West, slavery was too widely accepted to require defense.
Oh, that's not true.
No other nation ended slavery in the same way as the United States did, and few ended it after so short a struggle, as history is measured.
Bullshit.
How and why did slavery end in most of the world? There were two major processes. Over the centuries, as more and more territories around the world consolidated into nation states with their own armies and navies, raiding those territories to capture and enslave the people who lived within them became more hazardous in itself, and also risked military retaliation against the countries from which the raiders came. Thus, more and more peoples became off limits to slave raiders over time. Put differently, the areas which remained subject to slave raiding over the centuries were primarily those where the people lived in smaller or weaker societies. Such societies continued to exist where it was difficult, for geographic or other reasons, to consolidate large areas under one government. This was true of the Balkans, the backwaters of Asia, and much of sub-Saharan Africa. By the early modern era, sub-Saharan Africa, with its numerous and severe geographic handicaps, was one of the last remaining areas from which vast numbers of people could be enslaved.
Whatever, bruh. And they didn't need to go get more slaves anyways, because their slaves that they got 100 years ago had a bunch of babies.
Well, the genocide that they claimed to happen physically, because I mean, of course, there was some that happened physically, but majority of it happened on paper. And when the census people went around, they didn't, like now how they might have you to go on and fill out your census, who's in the house and how many people here, there, whatever. No, they purposely sent people out because, if you try to put on there that you're Indian, but you more look to them would be considered to them a Negro, they wanted to make sure that you didn't, identify as something that they didn't want you to. So it's the genocide really happened more so on paper than it even did actual deaths.
Well, race is now considered an identified trait and claimed on the census and not actually have anything to do with race, blood, color, anything like that.
Because scientifically, like I say, I study.
Go to your go to your messengers.
That's where I'm at right now.
I actually sent you a video about the guy that declared himself as a white person. I think I sent that to you. Identified as black and Champagne dude, whatever his name is, Charlemagne came out and like, I can't argue with him, man.
Well, there's scientists that will say that there is no such thing as white people.
Well, there's no
as a race. Well,
race
anymore. Well, that too. There's really no such thing as race. But even if we separate the people. Even if we separated people based on
one species, there are 3 genuses, but there's still only one race.
So it's really not an argument. It's really
down the tree, not up the tree.
It's really not an argument. It's really not an argument.
We are the human race. Yes, there is Mongoloid, there is Caucasian, and there is Negroid. Okay, that's just three branches of the human race. When you get down to it, and at that point, why does it matter?
Well, it really doesn't. I mean, for some people, that's the only way that they can truly identify. Like, I mean, that's just that, like that's almost like yeah, I'm a LSU grad. Like it's another way of some people, you know, trying to put a badge on themselves as in some type of importance when you don't really have any.
My mother used to got beat up in school because she was of German descendancy.
What's that?
My mom used to get beat up in school because she was of German descent.
That's how it be.
I used to get beat up because my dad was a redneck from Tennessee. And we lived just off the base in the cheapest housing available because my dad didn't want us to go to military schools because he knew what that was going to do. So guess who most of our neighbors were?
Black people.
That was not fun for us, especially being the new kid every 6 months to a civilian community just outside the base. I mean, that was my literal first 9 years. No, I remember better than that at 5. So 7, 8, 9, 10 was me getting my butt kicked because I was a ninja lover because I lived where I lived. Or you don't belong here, white boy. So, I mean, that was literally the kind of what I dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine.
It goes both ways. It's all sides. The real thing is, it's dumbass hate. It's get better. And hopefully we're starting to do that now. Or we have been for 40 years. It's gotten better.
Yeah,
I don't know about this last two. It's not been so good this last two.
Well, the thing about it is that there is always a few that try to make it seem as though they're the majority, and I don't believe that. Like, I mean, honestly, like, most people are coming around. Yeah, they could probably, maybe they're lying, maybe they're faking the funk and trying to just make sure they don't get their ass whooped right now. But for the most part, like, I come across what seems to be genuine people, and wouldn't have anything to do with it. I mean, but you got to also think that, I mean, based on who you are, you attract you know what you are. So, I mean, if you're an asshole, you probably attract a lot of assholes around you. So, I mean, that's why I got you and Chaka here. But however,
remember, we want you to be an activist, and don't take our word for it. Look that shit up. Pulley.